This is, I think, probably the only demo which is actually running in a fourth system. So, but let me get up to F11 puts down a timestamp and does a save. So that, and this copy is actually up on GitHub now. But man, modern technology, up in Woodland Park it's very dry and the static is bad, and a year or so ago that fried the micro HDMI on there. So I've got this, and something is wrong with this. And I got online yesterday or this morning to go and see, because it was getting no Wi-Fi. The HDMI was working fine on the TV there. This company's in Miami. And
you can't get to the web server because it's currently, you can't get to the web server because Irma is flowing over them.
So they have an apology. As of last Tuesday, they said essentially we'll see you next Tuesday. And yeah, going Azure is the maker of the thing. So one other thing before getting into things. As thanks to our host Gerald, I brought this, which I used to say I left Manhattan when Bloomberg got this notion that employees are too unable to do anything to go and just start their own bar or whatever, so they have to be protected. And he made it illegal for me to go and relax in the Paris Cafe downstairs with a cigar and a Guinness, like I had for a couple of decades, and sort of like, well, if you can't relax in your custom manner, time to move to Colorado. and so I moved up to Keller County's one of the few places that has an operating gold mine, Cripple Creek, which also is famous in an old Grateful Dead song. But
no, it's a band song.
It's the band.
It's the band.
What? Who are they?
It's music for the Big Pink. Live band.
It's the band.
If you haven't, you're too young.
In any case, within 6 months after I moved to Colorado, the Republican governor signed essentially a ban on nicotine and alcohol in the same place. And a lot of my libertarian friends blamed me for being a vector. But the local Mountain Jackpot, because there are casinos in Cripple Creek, tabloid had this as their cover, and so I made some T-shirts out of it, and I was wearing one yesterday. But one of the things is you will notice I got another one that says that it's a hillbilly T-shirt, but this has got a certain hillbillyish aspect because it's well, it's I mean, again, it's people who they're trying. You can see they're trying, but it's welcome to California, you know, sort of California coming, but it's Actum smoking is verboten.
Thank you very much.
This is.
Thank you. Very nice.
In any case, can everybody relatively read this?
Yeah, it's
good enough. Good, Nick. because wow, it ends up got down to having it on a USB. This is actually running EuroForth, and one of the things is I hit F1 to put up the major keys. So actually, I think I'm going to mainly be pointing just with the pointer here, put up the keys. And the most important lines, Shift F6 goes and executes things directly in fourth, and you will see as soon as I do something, like let's for instance do 1, 2, and I'm hitting Shift F6. So nothing in the result. But this is kind of small, so you might see, but in any case, there's the stack is showing. So if I do plus dot and Shift F6, put the result 3 up there. So I should have used really my anyway. If you hit instead, let me go up to the top here, I think, and because this is what you see when you, this is exactly what's on GitHub right now, but if I hit F6, I'm going to hit F6 here, and I get to this functional programming group. I didn't realize actually that regular Forth used S colon, but in any case, if I hit F6, it expects a CoSy object on there, which is a list, like hello world. So I hit F6, bang, hello world. But to show that that's actually a list of a character list, and there's a typical APL word that reversed it, okay? And also, one of the most important words, row, okay, it's 12 characters. And one thing I'll get back around to, but the one thing on a borrowed machine, I'll jump here. By the way, just in terms of the structure of this is really a structure that's evolved as a job in over K and so forth, of having essentially the result window, having a window which is a log, the text, and having state, which is more or less that. And one of the things you see is virtually anything that is sitting around is a menu item, if you will. And everything in the system actually is, this D-names is all of the objects that are around, including the text and so forth. But hopefully we'll get to ledger list, which is up to date. You can again, this is exactly what's on YouTube, on GitHub right now. But one of the things that I'd have to change, I can't, normally one of the special keys that I have really, one of the few, is Control F9, but that looks at this variable browser, and it doesn't know that he's using, it doesn't know this browser. So I'll just skip over here to, and I want to pick up some things here to go and give some background. This is CoSy, the page you get, and like I say, this is on GitHub. But let me go to these presentation screens, which normally I would go and call directly from CoSy, but the history of CoSy goes way back. This is a compact suitcase sitting on top of where I live in Manhattan. And see, if you blow this up, you can see amazing similarities. Some of these ideas, which are incredibly trivial, like F9, F12 to put down day stamps, it's really trivial. But the other half, I won't go into the fourth half because everybody knows that. But the other influence in CoSy is Ken Iverson and APL. And this is what pulled me into APL. And overall, the title, this is definitely well worth reading his talk, Notation as a Tool of Thought. And I learned APL because I could bang my head against the computer until I understood the math that these, brilliant brains at IBM Research had built into it. But I wanted to just cut down to, this is a talk that I gave at the open source meetup in Skip, that half of it. But here, in some sense, the two paths, Anton, I actually have a shout out to for the help that he gave in making a very essential piece of software, or code, because I really don't know assembler and so forth very well. But, and this is an important point that I keep pointing out, and it sort of is my universal excuse, is it's sort of irritation-driven development. It's whatever bugs me the most at the time, and the IUP, the interface, is one of the big ones. But this is the structure of the header of all the CoSy objects. It's 4 cells. The first is type, and a 0 is data. It means that it's a list of lists. Second item, actually, and this is the thing about it, is that it's the count, how many. Everything is a list. The third one is split mainly into reference counts, which Anton talked about. Oh, you are here.
Yes.
I saw the empty seat next to you.
Your evil twin isn't here.
But, and then actually this last one is a change from Arthur Ridley's structure in having a meta address, either 0 or it again can be a CoSy structure, a CoSy list of lists. So that, in a sense, one of the most important things in here. Well, first, of course, just by testing for 0 on the first cell in here, you know whether you've got a list that's a nested list and so forth, or you have some specific type, like character or float or whatever. But the fact is that everything is a list. There's no such thing as just a single item, except, of course, a list very frequently only has one item. But let me return here, and I'll just quickly go through to show sort of where you get when you have, this goes way, way back, and there's a, but so you're showing that it's fourth. You can just define a word, hello world, which outputs the string. So one of the things is, whoa, that's one of those reasons why, I don't know exactly, in the irritation-driven development, I never know whether it's that I've hit a wrong key or something else went wrong, because, again, I do very little checking on this. That's, it can be, sort of to be added. Let me redefine hello world and show that that's hello. So I can do hello world. And now we get into very APL-ish stuff. And again, this word take, need that point. Okay, if people just see, I guess I can use this. Yeah, this probably is. This is hello world, and this is an integer list, a 2-item integer list, 7 by 20, 723, and take goes and forms a list. It's going to be a 7-item list, each of which is 23 long. And let me F6 that. So there is a whole 7 by 26. And now you get into, again, these very important APL-ish words. And this is one of the most important pieces of language in APL are the each words. This is each monadic. There sort of is a little vocabulary of them. But that took each of those lines, reversed it again, and then the CL is concatenate lists, and that glued them together. And actually, to complete it, reverse the whole thing. And here, if you had a taller screen, you'd see. And actually, by a strange quirk of fate, back in around 1981 or 82, happened to go and show this demo in first generation APL to Vidal Sassoon. But, God. This is mainly that, so one of the reasons why every time you do an execute, it saves your state. You know, it saves everything. But this IUP is a big thing to get rid of. Quickly go through some of these notes, and most of these I've written down while sitting here. How many do know APL or have heard of it at all? Wow. You know, I'll tell you, this is the same thing that happened at Silicon Valley FIG, because you go to a random room of programmers and you ask how many know APL, and you'll get maybe 2 or 3 hands out of the whole thing. So there's some correlation in mentalities here. And how many are familiar with the whole notions, the whole concatenative language, school? Yeah. Because in some ways it's cleaner. One goal is to have in normal things no difference in the way you write something down when it's in a definition than when it's executing in real time. And that particularly is the tick quote symbol. Really want to make that the same. Oh yeah, Andrew. Yeah, the whole point of scaling up. So what you were talking about. This is taking it all the way to the other end of the spectrum, in a sense. And another point, very much. I mean, CoSy's always been about me being able to live in a computing environment, and sort of hit a dead end for reasons better not gone into with Arthur Whitney and his wife Janet Lustgard. And so I had to roll my own APL. And from way back when the first Tron movie came out, and the Byte magazine, and I learned of Forth, that was the only. I mean, here you see something, and this has impressed a bunch of people in the APL world when they see you do something right at the register level and so forth, and at the same time you're doing something that is really, really, well, I've totally stolen all of Arthur Whitney's structures and so forth. So it really is, The main difference in competitiveness is that I just go to the operating system to allocate material. But one of the things, as you see, I can sit here and just be writing notes and so forth, but write down something and an idea and execute it and develop in it. And again, boy, what I don't know is much greater than what I do, including even how to do things really efficiently in DOS. I don't know. And GitHub, I'm making peace with it. And this is one of the comment on about Forth, and I think one of the brilliances is it recognizes the language is not just a horizon, which is one of APL's real problems. That you have these sort of God-given symbols and so forth. You know, those are, and there are only a few of those, and they're under the control of the central committee. You know, and then that splits into different groups and so forth. But here, you know, it's open to the body, you know, the core, and all other APLs are written in C. So you can now have an APL that's written in C. You can have one that's written in Forth, and where the Forth is open, and the entire structure is transparent. But that whole recognition of language being a hierarchy that builds and builds, I mean, I really think that that's unique. I mean, that's one of the brilliances of Chuck et al. That didn't sound quite right. And an attraction to APL is this invariance of size. Actually, Ting, I watch, they have every fourth Saturday, they have their SVFig meeting, and that's on YouTube and so forth live. And Ting was talking about some, you know, pattern computations, and you'll find in my notes I went, scroll. Scroll up here a little, you'll see, well, you'll see my notes from the conference, but you'll see, I went and checked that CoSy is capable of at least the 4,000 by 3,000 array that my Nikon takes. So doing that sort of, you know, and again, I generally do things very much on a much more personal basis. But the invariance with size is the fact that you can write down a line, and this is one of the reasons why K is going gangbusters nowadays in very large-scale data, and they're really pushing now into artificial intelligence and all of that because, again, these array operations are that's why I learned APL in the first place. But, and also, if I do a Control S, that's now saved. Fix that typo. But this whole notion of being able to have an interactive environment so you can work your way through your problems is, I think it is interesting that both of them absolutely insisted on that, and that without question when Pascal was coming into the computing center. But I could sit there and do an APL in minutes what were whole assignments for people in computer science. You know, I'm sorry, for me it's game over. And this is a point that actually mentioned Sam Falvo, who's pretty active in the SVFig group. But in discussions with him, this issue that these languages are particularly oriented towards the building of vocabularies. whereas other languages are sort of like you're working on putting together a program. Here in Forth and in APL, it's generally going and making a vocabulary, which in the end, you can just write down a sentence. And also any permutations of those ideas to go and play around with them, which is largely what, if you read that quote from Ken Iverson, then it's very much what he says. I'll skip, that's a design goal. I really wanted words to have all of their content inside themselves, and that was way to get through that. Oh, by the way, there's obviously no spell checker in here because that's relatively low on my irritation list. I don't know how to spell complimentary, but that's wrong, I'm sure. But CoSy's got these reference counted lists of lists, like we're talking about, but it really is, as you can see, it's just built on this EuroForth, which Ron Aaron and a bunch of other people really put together, very practically oriented on Wintel machines, which now I'm stuck in. But I wanted something that was practical, that had libraries being developed to do everything from sockets for process communication, which is something I've not tied in here, to there's even a big nums package, and I've gotten persuaded that big nums are useful to have in big integers and the operations on them. There's a number of those things that are easy for somebody to flesh out and pull into the core, but what matters really is this core. So, I mean, CoSy can either be looked at as this whole system and, if you will, a computational notebook, or as the vocabulary that adds lists of lists, APL level functionality to whatever Forth you're using. It really is only, my guess is it's probably around 10 kilobytes. Don't, if it's 20, okay. I don't know, I mean, I could, go and do, needs a new place. This actually is sort of personal. Oh, and one of the things is I'm looking for Python, any challenges I think I can do, anything Python can do, that I can do it interactively, and I think probably as distinctly, if I can't do it, I will be able to do it. These were actually, if Control F9, if you knew what the browser was, I would have just clicked on these to go and open those. But I've pretty much, this in a sense, this fundamental structure, the structure of the header, is really the most important thing. One thing I wanted to show, and then we'll open it up, is this was your demo. Here it is in CoSy, and one of the things is I've not made functions. There are a lot of things that I sort of feel clear. Other people whoops, no, I'm just slow. I want to go and make sure that doesn't cause a problem. But here's integer vector, and this is one of the things is, I think it's pretty straightforward that I paren goes and starts a list of integers, and then paren I closes it. And this is where it really differs. I mean, this is Forth syntax, so stick the things on the things. And then this is generalized APL, or there you see it. There's a couple of integer vectors. Similar vocabulary for floats. But one of the things actually that's different, and in a sense is something that people could worry about being really resource dependent, but I find that I'm very happy that I did it. I think you mentioned sort of scalar extension, applying a scalar across, adding a scalar to a vector. Well, rather than having scalars and having to explain that you've got this different class of things, in CoSy, all of the indexing is modulo. So, which is again, well, I mean, the cycles are there for me to, use to make life easy for me. So here, actually, a more interesting demonstration might be 1 minus 1. So there you see it just replicated. So again, you can never have a length error, which you'd get in CoSy. Oh, and the vocabulary of question mark actually goes and looks through all the source code files and finds all occurrences of whatever the phrase is that you have here, and you just write your documentation at the point where you get, and essentially it goes and splits things on any blank line, totally blank, not even spaced, and that's what delimits items that will come up. But I was mentioning that you've got monadic each, and one of the things again that's important is semantically, these can be parallel. I mean, and this is another reason why this is far, far more flexible than a traditional APL system, because because you can map this to the hardware at the 4th level. So if you have something like this Epiphany chip, which the current generation just being taped out, has 1024 64-bit processors on a chip. So if you want, you're going to need, in a sense, APL level concepts to say, do it, here are my processors, go and apply all these things to all of those. Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, notice, again, I added the link to your website, which I pulled up at the time in there. But the other thing that I want to get to, and that'll be oh, here we are. It was earlier. Okay, these are my one of the real uses, and one of the things, the reason why APL is used in money center banks and so forth. I'll go and say PSVT is my bank, Park State Bank and Trust, and I decided actually for the things that I got in euros, I'd say cash E as a function, but the fundamental accounting structure that I use is lists of date and who from, who to, amount, and then I can add, well, I just added a string as a comment and so forth. But if I enclose that, enclose it into a single item and do it, I just created this ledger recreated, this ledger list, because I've been finding that this structure, which is, so there, just enclose that. But the next item that I did, I bought this universal adapter, and if I go and execute this line, it goes and encloses R0 is always the result of the last operation. It encloses that and appends it, and so now I have, but this is the way that I'm literally keeping my, and then got the train. Didn't I execute that? Oh. Oh, I commented that out. I see it's got a comment symbol. But I got a drink here in town, and append that to my ledger list. And I think actually that's probably enough of an overload. So, but I think you see, I mean, I in fact, and I've got this example here, graphing out the amounts. I actually was trying to see whether my petty cash actually matched. Allowed me to figure out how much this drink that I bought had cost, because I looked in my cash and saw starting from the 200, because I didn't know how much that drink had tobacco, whatever it cost. But you see that is, in fact, and again, if I were on my own machine or on this one, I would show you the CoSy environment, which still have got a lot of family trust and so forth, ledgers tend to do an awful lot. Because one of the things is, if you're successful in this world, bottom line, you're going to end up having to take care of some accounting. And also, despite one of the early companies in APL being called scientific timesharing, well, it turns out if you're a scientist, a physicist, or something like that, but you want to make money, and you're really good at number crunching, whatever your druthers are, you'll end up in a money center, city, crunching numbers that have currency symbols attached. And that's why, just to finish off, because there were some questions about the viability and so forth of APL, and they're meeting, actually, even right now. I want to get up there to the closing banquet up north of Copenhagen. But one of my friends from Lake Forest sold his company, Security APL, which did what we call portfolio wrap things. It was for brokers who had a bunch of clients and they placed them in different stocks and currencies and so forth, or stocks, but sort of to handle the accounting of, okay, I've got this cluster of clients and this set of stocks and so forth, and that's the sort of, but he sold Security APL, it must be a decade and a half ago, for like 60 million. Couple of friends through K, Joel Kaplan, another guy from the Sandy Star, who were with Arthur Whitney at Morgan Stanley, and were sort of Arthur's interface with humanity there. But they started a company, 1010data.com, and you can pull that up on your things. But they sold that last year to another financial service company out of, I think, out of San Francisco. But they sold that for $500 million. So there's money in the APL level sorts of things. And here you have the two ends of the spectrum of computer coding. One continuous thing, download it from GitHub, tell me what broke or why it didn't work or whatever. Ask the questions and it'll continue, because this is one of the things is this is my language for the rest of my life. So, and I don't plan on starting to write my biography until I'm in my 90s. Okay, 6 minutes of questions.
You use Ron Aron's EuroForth?
Oh, one of the things, by the way, there was a note there that everything from accounting to, because of my background in psychophysics, really visual psychophysics, but a lot of it's all the same. This year sucks. This year is I bought a $300 hearing aid from Amazon right before this. Didn't work worth damn. Yesterday at the museum, those things work pretty well. But the hearing is the biggest thing that's going. So
yeah. So you mentioned that you use Ron Aron's EuroForth, right?
yes.
Yes, and he has now done another one which is called 8.
Pardon?
He has done another 4.
He's going to 8. Yeah.
And I think he's doing something like dynamic typing and so on, which would fit, I think, what you're doing.
I've done, one of the things is in a lot of these things, there are these splits where, because one of the things I think was remarkable that Ron did is like Helmar Rudke, I'm hoping to get it together with tomorrow up in Prague, who is one of the most brilliant. Just brilliant, simple, the brain that's got, he created this structure called Vader, which essentially goes and sticks things on the return stack so that this is what you want to do when this function ends. That's sort of merging these functions together. But Ron lived within walking distance of Microsoft in Seattle at the time it started. He moved to a settlement. He's a settler in Israel now, and but I see a lot of what he did in 8th. But one of the things that's very important with this, he's got these functions to go and allocate. Still, but it's thinking on the scalar sort of a thing. When CoSy allocates something, it's always a list. So it can be allocating 100,000 items, and limit is, well, like it's 32-bit cell you've got there. So there's an efficiency. That's why K is very competitive for these sorts of things. Ron, there are a number of things where, sort of Ron didn't quite get what was being pushed at. It was an incredible group of people putting that together. And I can understand, right now, and I think you can understand a lot better why I pioneered carrying these things around in Manhattan to financial meetings and that first generation CoSy to take notes. And as a matter of fact, you dig into some of the deep parts of the website, which is since 1996, and you'll see the notes that I took at financial meetings with my notebook. As alone in this, in Manhattan, in the first generation CoSy doing that. So I really, really want to, anybody who's got paths to get this on a smartphone, I want to have this across all of them. I want this as my universal interface to all of my computer resources, but most fundamentally, the ubiquitous one, what I can, now pull out of my pocket. I've not bought a smartphone because I've been so determined. I thought, man, Microsoft and Intel have to get it together to make at least an inferior but marketable. You know that phrase, IBM? In any case, he's gone with 8th, and I understand a lot of the motivations for that, and the cross-platform thing about it. But one of the things is partly because because one for learning, I just, and this is the thing is this, I didn't get into the stack frame vocabulary, but I'm quite sure it was you who gave me the hints on comp.lane.forth to how to cure this thing. So essentially there's a stack frame vocabulary in here which is very lightweight, and essentially it just gives you the location, the stack on the point in time that you're entering a function, so you have a solid reference point for both things before and so forth. But I was having this bug, and I wasn't pushing something that needed to be pushed, as I remember on the x86 code. And you, on comp.lane, I'm quite sure, well, it's an archive, whatever. But yeah, I didn't get into some of the technical stuff and how the whole reference count was. Oh, it comes up and says thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so any other quick question maybe?
Well, maybe you just talk a little bit about the mindset someone needs to get into this APL structure. It's the third time I'm now coming across APL over the last couple of months. And typically people failed miserably in pushing this out into the market. So I talked to a guy who wanted to have APL on a personal computer in the 80s, and his stuff went bust. So you mentioned that everyone finally ends up in the financial sector or doesn't work with APL. So what are the chances?
Some of my, I want to get up there to Copenhagen or some place up north of Copenhagen to see a lot of my old friends. And thinking of one of them particularly who's a Finn, Timo, not they all, Laurama, who is involved in doing the annual report for the Bank of International Settlements. If you're familiar with that, it's the clearing bank for all of the countries of the world. But those are the sorts of jobs that APL gets. And again, Morgan Stanley, Morgan Stanley still uses A+, which was Arthur's APL that he wrote at Morgan Stanley. But then Union Bank of Switzerland actually went and essentially funded the creation of K. And one of the things is a little tidbit. Morgan Stanley, the group with Joel Kaplan and all of that, proprietary bond trading, all done in algorithmic trading. This is 2 decades ago. But they were responsible for greater than 1%, I don't know, 2 whatever percent of the entire trading on some of these bond markets and so forth. And that group of maybe a half a dozen people were responsible for over $1 billion of Morgan Stanley's earnings. And again, one final little anecdote, because essentially to sell that, look, this is, you get the whole end of the spectrum in a very lightweight package, all the way from the chip. Sitting at an NOAA Earth Sensing conference in Boulder, actually came up with a marketing phrase, CoSy, the shortest path from the chip to the mast. And the thing is, Morgan Stanley, there was at a conference, guys, they made a conscious decision, and this is in the 80s, whether to go with a floor full of programmers and a few mainframes, or a floor full of mainframes and a few brilliant programmers. And this is one of the aspects of both APL and Forth that are also similar, is there for the bright, the capable individual. I mean, it's they're not team sports. Which makes
it very dependent on this elitist club. That is true. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. We now have a